Hi, Philip.
Hello, Luke. Is it just you and me?
I think so. So
No.
far.
There's Ben.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, Ben.
Hi. Is that your backyard, Ben?
No, sadly not. This is just a generic photo to try and hide what's behind me.
Mm-hmm. Ben, where are you based?
I'm in Glasgow,
Oh, okay.
up in Scotland.
Yeah, we never got a chance to really to be introduced to each other. We always
No.
right into the
Yeah,
content.
I'm statistics up there. Yeah, nice to meet you, Luke.
Same. Have we heard from Valerie or Dennis? I will check Slack, but
Well, one of them is usually there, isn't it? But let's hope so. So neither Luke and I were at last week's session. That's right, isn't it? So Ben, were you? The last or in the previous discussion meeting? Hello?
I'm not sure he can hear us.
Sorry, my connection cut out then. I think I'm back on.
Were you at the last
What
discussion
did you say?
meeting?
Sorry,
Ben?
Philip. Yes, I was. Yes.
Yes, because we didn't make it, either of us. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure we made a huge amount of progress last week.
that's because we weren't there.
Had some discussion. Yeah. Yeah, that must be it.
Probably made negative progress this time. While we're waiting, I might as well explain that Luke and I have actually been a bit busy on our 7.5 document.
Oh, great.
It is in there in the Dropbox.
Yep.
Interested in having a look?
Yeah, I'm quite pleased with the progress.
Oh,
Yeah, I am too. I think that's shaping up now. Let's see what others think. Which of the subsections are you most involved in, Ben?
I was involved in the 7.4, which is the challenges of estimation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't had a chance to update much this week. So
I see Valerie is reading our document, Philip, but
What, right now?
yeah.
But she's not in the. She's not.
Hi, Dan.
hi, Daniel.
It looks very summery over there, or at least very warm. Is that correct? Where you are, Daniel?
Yeah, it's summer here. It's very warm.
Where are you in the world?
I'm in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I put up this background to try and make me feel a bit better about the cold, wet weather we're having at the moment.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi, yeah, sorry, I'm a bit late.
Hi, Valerie. Sorry, I missed last week's meeting,
Likewise.
but we made good
But
progress.
you've made progress. I was just, that's partly why I'm late. I was just having a quick read.
You were enjoying that so much. You forgot the time.
So it looks, so I wasn't quite sure. Because there's a lot of new stuff. Sorry, I'm just looking at it. Well, new, rewritten, and new, I think, in the early part, which in mine looks brown because that's where Luke's edited it, I think. And then it goes back to the original material much more. But you're expecting all of it to be in there.
That's the plan. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an
No,
integration
I mean, it
of what was
looks
there
right.
before and an expansion of some other things which needed
Yeah.
expansion.
No, I think that's what I assumed. It's just that some of these things, you know, some residual material gets left at the bottom just in case it's needed for
That's
some
right.
purpose.
But in this particular document,
I
that's not
think,
the case. There is some stuff at the bottom which is just bullet points, but it is intended to be there. Whether we can leave it as bullet points or have to put it as text, I don't know.
yeah. Well, I think that that's a challenge for all of us, isn't it? Is to exactly what the style is.
Yeah.
For the various sections, because we're not in a sort of unified style at the
I mean,
moment.
somebody, presumably you and or Dennis, has got to take charge of the overall document, I guess.
Is that right?
Well, somebody. I mean, it's many, many hands, but at some point there has to be, I think, a unifying hand. Don't you agree?
Yes, I do. Whether it's us, I'm not sure, but yes, it will need. I mean, and I'm sure we will read it, both of us. But whether somebody else wants to do that, take that role, because we'll be looking at all of them.
Yeah.
So I wonder if anyone else is joining us. I had a quick look on the Dropbox, and this seemed to be the only thing that had changed since last week. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm afraid I haven't had a chance to do anything.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not.
No, I know you weren't being.
You're here.
I was
which is
just updating
wonderful.
that that's my situation, but I can't see any other updates this week. But
As far as I'm concerned, I'm you know, barring a few very minor tweaks, I'm quite happy with this document on 7.5 as it stands.
Yeah.
But it's got the stuff on sort of structured expert judgment has become a smaller part of it now. It sort of added a lot of more general stuff about how experts can help, which I hope is okay. I think it is. I think it should be. But some comments on that, I guess, will be helpful. But one thing I'd like to do now is, particularly with the structured expert judgment stuff, send this out or something like it very soon for comments to those people, the people who really are the experts who were involved in the half-day workshop.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's fine. I mean, what we were doing with with the policy paper, which is just a little bit ahead of this, was to send it to various people to comment. But that was, we've now got all the sections in a state where it could all go. But I assume you're meaning here just this particular section at the moment. Yeah. I suppose the other thing, or the other comment I had was, there's the question of referring from here to the paper, which I'm still hoping is coming from Will and so on.
Yeah, but I'm hoping too, but I think there's a problem of timing there, because I don't feel expert enough to take on responsibility for that. So Will, I hope, Will is willing, but he says he's pretty much tied up until May.
I don't think that's a huge problem. I mean, as far as the issue of epidemics is concerned, we don't have to have all the papers ready together. We can add them.
Right, good.
So, I mean, obviously they don't presumably want us to go on adding papers, into the sort of foreseeable future or even unforeseeable future. But I mean, we certainly don't have to hold anything up. Papers can be added to the volume as they become available.
It won't be a printed version. I'm
sorry?
Won't it be a printed edition of
No,
the?
it's all open access and it's all online. There is no printed thing, so that's why it's actually everything's much more relaxed than with a printed volume, actually, in terms of lengths of papers and numbers of papers and delivery dates and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go on adding papers if we know they're coming. Ideally, we've warned them that as well as the 11 challenges papers I think we've got, since 4 is split into 2 bits, as well as that there would be a small number, 2 or 3 or something, of sort of separate expository papers, or papers that would fit in nicely, and they're very happy with that. And I think it doesn't have to be at exactly the same time, so it should be fine. I mean, if Will was saying he's not going to be able to think about this for the foreseeable future or for the next year or something, we might think again. But if we're talking about May, I don't think that's
Okay, that's good news. That's good news.
Problem.
There's one other point before I forget I wanted to raise. Somehow, in the sort of instructions for the 7.5, there was an item on communication of uncertainty. I'm quite sure why that got in there, because it seems a bit distinct.
I raised that.
Don't really have any material on it.
Well, I raised that as a suggestion in one of the first meetings I attended, and then it was like pushed into this section. But I think it's now captured as a sub, in one of the paragraphs, Philip. So I'm
something about which one could say quite a lot if one were one of the experts who had a lot to say, which I'm not. I mean, but all those people like Spiegelhalter, of course, are far too busy to do this kind of thing.
I mean, communicating.
I just learned actually that John Aston in Cambridge has just sort of taken over what was Spiegelhalter's previous position, and the Winton.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, he'll have a different take on it, I guess. But I wonder if we might.
Interesting.
Yeah. Is there a need to add in extra material, substantial material, do you think, on communicating uncertainty?
Well, it's cropping up in a number of the papers, isn't it? So I don't know, Dennis, Ben, you might have a view as to how well it fits here, rather than, because I mean, we are going to be addressing it in a number of places.
Yeah, I think in the policy paper we've talked quite a bit about that, but maybe some of the more kind of methodological challenges might be more relevant here.
But I think so there's communicating uncertainty. I think I think all it needs is some remarks in the context of putting forward UQ and EJ approaches. Because surely those are going in that direction of trying to get across that we aren't in the, I don't know, standard textbook thing where everything, you're just estimating parameters, and once you've estimated those parameters, that's really all the uncertainty that's going on. It's just to say in the context of pandemics, there's an awful lot more because of, basically because of not knowing which model to use and not necessarily and having competing ideas of how to formulate and all the rest of it. So it seems to me that the introduction of this paper should have something about uncertainty, and can obviously mention that, but But I wouldn't develop it too elaborately here. We can, if it doesn't get covered adequately, say in the policy, I think the policy paper may be more the place to have a moan about the difficulty of getting politicians to take uncertainty into account.
Yeah, but there are also good and bad ways of doing the job, and we want them. So there are some people who have good expertise in doing the job well, which.
Yeah, but I think in fact in this chapter we're just trying to put our finger on why there are whole aspects of uncertainty that it's important to take into account in doing any kind of inference for pandemics, and the actual bit about communicating that is obviously implicit in that, but can perhaps be covered elsewhere.
Yeah, and just picking up on something else you just said, Dennis, about the business of model uncertainty, which is very crucial, which hasn't explicitly gone into our section. But what I remember in an earlier discussion, there was some suggestion that it was something that might be picked up in several of the different sections. And I was thinking, if we were running this past Katrina Shea, who was sort of linking model uncertainty with structured expert judgment, and maybe we'll be able to put something in this section on it. But I'm wondering if that general topic of model uncertainty is also being treated elsewhere, it would be good to know and to link.
You mean elsewhere in this paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's perhaps some in section 7.4. I think the one that TJ and I have been working on.
Let me just get that up and have a look.
I think certainly covered it in the modelling paper as well, quite extensively.
Yeah, so
What's over there?
No,
when we put everything together, we should make the appropriate connections across the different subsections.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, Ben, can you quickly point me at the right bit of?
Yeah, I'm just trying to load the paper. Sorry, give me a second. So there's some on model discrepancy, but I guess that's whether you're talking about multiple models or model uncertainty within a single model.
I was thinking of multiple models, which is
Right.
a slightly different topic.
Yeah, that's a different.
Well, you've got model assessment, comparison, and
Yeah.
combination.
Validation.
So yeah, so that's.
Yeah, right at the last page, there's a paragraph on multiple models, but it's certainly perhaps do with some more detail.
Oh, and there's that important comment about things Spiegelhalter did.
Yeah.
Models, yeah. Yes, yes. So you're right, right. Okay, so at some point we should have to make appropriate links.
So there's I mean, you've got in Luke's part here with the 4 broad categories, the last of those, there's a paragraph describing that, isn't there, on communication?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that needs to be expanded further, or because that fits quite well? I mean, in terms of sort of length and so on, that fits quite well with the other 3 of those broad categories, doesn't it? I mean, you've got that 4 broad categories, and then each one is described in a relatively short paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose if one was going to pick up on communication, is that a much bigger challenge than the other ones? I don't know. I'm just trying to think a little bit about balance and how best
I try to balance it that way.
Yeah,
I think if we say more about it, it would deserve like a separate section almost.
Yeah,
well, that's what I was wondering, whether that is that needed, do you think?
I mean,
Or
I don't feel that more is needed in this 7.5.
right,
But the question is whether it's needed somewhere,
yeah, okay.
more something, maybe not.
But from 7.5 a cross reference to 7.4 or wherever else.
Yeah.
Presumably.
Hi everyone, apologies for being late.
Hi, Glenn.
But that this sort of cross reference has best been done when we got near final drafts of the different bits.
Yes, although it's not a bad strategy to just put a little comment there to remind us that we need a cross reference to whichever section it is.
I'll put a note there.
I think it tends to be useful. It just makes sure these things don't get forgotten.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, good.
Will there be like a concluding section to this paper? Because it's such a common topic, we might even consider moving this whole paragraph or the topic to a more general concluding section.
Well, I would have thought that in general there would be, that most papers would tend to have some introductory remarks, and you know, and then a concluding section. Even if it's only very short, you sort of feel you need to have something there to just round it off rather than just stopping.
I mean, it serves as a nice concluding section to this particular section as well, or concluding paragraph. So I'm happy either way. Just a thought.
Sorry, what would serve? I didn't quite get that.
Sorry, say again, Philip?
You said it would serve as a concluding paragraph. I'm not quite sure what the it was referring to.
Oh, the paragraph on communication. It ties together all the three, all the other.
Oh, I see. You pull it out and yeah, something like that. Yeah. I think my feeling is that what we have can stay, but we can think about whether something elsewhere additional is needed in some other section.
I think it fits in nicely where it is there. So
yeah.
The way you've written it.
So I'm going to send it out then to my experts just to see if we get any decent feedback. Now, the last message we got from you indicated some deadlines.
Yes, indeed. Trying to concentrate minds here.
and something that was going to have something ready for the 1st of March. Is that right?
Well, we want to, I mean, our nominal deadline, if we can, would be the end of March to submit the paper. And if we're going to send it out to people for comment, to people like Hans particularly and so on beforehand, and get some feedback and have time to act on that feedback, then, you know, working backwards, beginning of March seems a good time to aim for. But some papers will make that and some won't, I think. But also thinking about staggering the work from Hans's point of view, it's good not to sort of suddenly give him all of them to look at once. But we haven't particularly thought of sending out sections, but I mean, I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, hopefully we can, well, I don't know, what do people think about the other sections? Are we near to getting a paper? I know people have got so little time. It's all a bit of a struggle.
I think it's 7.3 that's perhaps I don't know where that's been up to.
I don't know what's happened to that one.
I thought something had, but I think it's in the same. It's basically what we created last week. So I'm not sure. on the Dropbox, I don't think anything's changed, but I don't know whether anything's happened offline.
No, well, Jasmina was going to, I think, was that with Daniel? Did she volunteer you, Daniel? Do I remember? Was it this one? It was,
Yeah,
was it not?
So Jasmine said she would write something on that section, and then she would pass over to me, but then I didn't receive anything from her, so I just sent her a message to I said, well, I'd be happy to help if to contribute anything here. So I don't have much to say right now about this section. Yeah.
I think we did see her briefly this morning, and she's obviously had a week that was busier than she was expecting it to have been. So she's probably, behind with doing it. So hopefully it will happen. But yes, that's the one.
Maybe if I don't know, I have to see, maybe if I write something and then pass to her, so.
Well, if you can, or even some some initial thoughts or some bullet points,
right?
Whatever you can, I think would be really good. And have so 7.2 is that's the UQ one. That looks nice and tidy. So is that one, apart from references and things, is that one fairly complete? I think
I had a feeling that Peter said he was going to add some other things in, but or at least talk to Ian and people about it.
Okay. So it seems really that we're at the stage of each section needs to pull in some expert input from elsewhere, or at least for several of them. Do you think we should try and put it all together as a single paper so that we can just look at it, or do you think it's premature?
I think 7.4 needs a bit more editing before it's ready for that. I mean, we could do it then and edit the main one, but there's some mixture of kind of bullet points and non-bullet points, and possibly some repetition. So
it was my job to have a go at that this week, and I just haven't had a chance.
Well, I say you've all got so many jobs, your job to do. So,
but yeah, I'd agree with Ben that it needs a bit of work. But.
Okay. So, what is the strategy now that these various bits of consultation, a bit more work on 7.4, consultation over 7.5, bit of work on 7.3 with Jasmina and Daniel. Do we try and get all that sorted for next week so that we've got a paper to put?
It might be good to set that as a deadline to sort of put it all together in a week's time.
I think,
is that feasible?
Something out for consultation. I can ask for a speedy feedback, but I think a week is probably going to be pushing it.
Yeah, but yours is more. It's possibly in a better state than some of the others already. I mean, it could be just put into a complete paper as it stands for now, and then but I agree. Yes, it's hopeful to have got the feedback within a week. but I guess if we could aim for that, that would be good.
Okay.
So that, hang on, so that's 7.2 we assume is with Peter, 7.3 with Jasmina, 7.4 with Ben and TJ and Glenn, and 7.5 with Phil. Is 7.5, there isn't a 7.6, is there? So it's, that would be the discussion at the end. And we will at some point need an introduction. Well, it doesn't need to be terribly long. And once we've got the...
There is something there at the moment.
There is, yes. There's a set of bullet points.
7.1, let's see, what's that?
Yeah.
Yes, there is something.
So hopefully when we've got 7.2, the 4 sections, basic sections, then we can put a top and bottom to them fairly easily. Has anybody, the other thing that we're meant to be doing on all these papers is sort of looking at what was in the previous challenges volume, and trying to say, to put this paper in the context of where we were 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Has anybody looked to do that?
No, not yet.
Okay, well that's a to do somewhere down the line. Do you remember, Dennis, what was you at least were an editor of that volume. Do you remember what was in there on estimation?
Just get the titles up. Anyone can do this in the IDP chat.
Sure. I just thought you might, because I know you've been looking at it a bit. You might have something in your head.
No, I haven't. Like with the data one, there were the 2 that seemed particularly relevant.
Wow, there are many chapters in that 2015 edition.
Yeah, yes, it was but they were much more sort of focused on very specific challenges and areas, whereas this time we've got fewer papers, but they're much broader in general.
I mean, I suppose the two that were being mentioned this morning under data are also, they're sort of making use of data, so they're essentially related to estimations. That's numbers 17 and 18. Challenges for model-driven data collection and experiments, and challenges in infectious disease modeling using data.
But I wonder if things like, both UQ and EE, and also model comparison and combination, are any of those topics covered in there? Sorry, I'm not looking at the papers.
Not that I can remember. No, I mean that's.
So that might be something to say in the introduction, to make the point that these are very much.
Actually, I'm thinking if people were thinking of doing a bit of a skim read to see if they could pick up something we ought to refer to, the contents, which is called 00A, so it comes at the beginning of the list, if you, as it were. The contents, it gives you the title of every challenge, so that would be good for a quick skim through to see if you think there's anything relating to estimation that we should.
There was the stuff on phylogenetic, which I did have a quick look through.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be touched on in several papers, but
yes, I mean, looking at the contents is quite, because you've got all the sections in that table.
But all the sections have actually counted their challenges. That's really
Oh
cool.
yes, we did. Yes, it was all the papers were called, X challenges 4. There was an aim to have, a relatively small number.
Oh, need a good statistician to do the counting, I think.
I mean, I was only involved in a few of the papers, and I don't remember these topics in the ones that I was involved with, which is obvious and reasonable. But I don't know about the other ones.
Well, I mean, the second one's got some stuff on sort of related to data and
what, livestock?
No, modelling disease. Oh, sorry, not the. Oh, yes, I know. I'm on the. I'm jumping down a page. Sorry,
I'm just looking
at the understanding dynamics. Sorry, it's the next slot.
Yes.
The 9 challenges in incorporating dynamics of behaviour. It's got some bits. 7 and 8 have the word data in them.
In the network epidemic models, the first chapter is on understanding the effect of heterogeneity on parameter estimation. That's a very specific topic.
Yeah.
And in the 4 key challenges in infectious disease modeling chapter, there is the third chapter is on efficient estimation of complex models. So there's a dedicated chapter there. It is.
Yeah. Sorry, where are you, Luke?
I'm looking at the table of contents.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm just not quite sure what.
Yeah, trying to find an indicator of the page. I think it's page 8 in Roman numerals.
Yeah. Okay. So which one were you looking at? The
4 challenges. It's right. It's smack in the middle.
4 key challenges.
Yeah, and then the third subchapter, efficient.
Yeah. Interesting that I hadn't noted that one, because they were, I thought, all called, 6 challenges, 4 challenges, 4. But this one is 4 key challenges. How did they sneak that key in there? Nobody else have key challenges but them.
One of them has got the number in square brackets. I don't know the meaning of that. Brackets 5 challenges for stochastic epidemic models involving global transmission. Must be a reason.
The last one manages to get away from having.
Oh yes, how funny.
Yes.
Can I just interrupt a little this train of thought to think about authorship? I mean, obviously, every one of us who's contributed would be in the authors, but if we send it out, we can get some comments and a little bit of material, even a sentence or 2 back from others. Would it be appropriate to include them as authors?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about this very much. I was hoping it would sort of sort itself as it and become clear. I mean, one possibility, I suppose, is to have, so you have the key authors who've really written the sections, and then some sort of term. What did we do? I mean, with the science.
I mean, I'm thinking that. Yeah, I mean, the people who've written, I think the authors should probably be the people who contributed a significant part of the texts. And I think the other people, we should just try and make sure we work in a way of thanking them. So you could. So
I'm not convinced. I mean, there was this there's this early thing that Robin Thompson organised with which was challenges for exit strategy, which had about 90 authors, I think. I mean, I contributed 1 sentence to it, I think, and I got an authorship, which I'm happy with.
But there were, well, I can't remember. I thought that paper was done like that, but maybe it wasn't. But certainly with this, I think with the science paper that we wrote last time, we had we had main authors, and then something that covered all the participants, so they were listed somewhere, but so that you didn't have, in the list of authors at the beginning of the paper, goodness knows how many names listed there. There was. Do you remember what I'm trying to remember, Dennis?
Mm.
What paper was that, Valerie?
Well, it was. I thought we wrote a science paper that came out in either 2014 or 2015, which is probably somewhere here. Dennis, have you?
I'm not sure if we've got it. It's 2050, but it's certain. Oh gosh.
Well, I can find it in my files somewhere.
Could pop it in the Dropbox if it isn't already there.
Drop it in. And somewhere, I suppose, we have this paper, this exit strategy paper, do we? And
Yes, yeah. I'm look for both those.
what was it called? Something like Towards an Exit. Let's search for exit.
Not totally sure we do.
Yes,
we should have the R0 one in here.
IDP, IDP preprints is a.
Oh, hang on.
I found exit.
Oh, it's IDP preprints. Yes, you got.
Yes, and it's only got this one in the key questions for modeling COVID-19 exit strategy.
Yeah, and it does have, as you say, a list of all the authors. That one.
And most of those authors, well, many of the authors contributed substantially, and I can personally say that some of the authors contributed minimally.
Yes. Well, we might have higher standards here.
Yes, there was something very funny with what Robin did with the list of names. So they're not wholly they're not wholly
myself and
alphabetical.
Olivier, I never found out. I mean, myself and Olivier come at the end. And I think
That's
in
right.
Olivier's case, it's probably to give him prominence. But why I'm next but last rather than being alphabetical, I do not know.
Well, I think because you got more prominence, like, so I'm third, which is a similar sort of position. It's not at either end, but it's not alphabetical either.
That's interesting. So there's a sandwich, isn't there? The bread on either side is the principal authors, and then there's everybody else alphabetical.
That's right. Now where so that's that one. Where the science paper is, I'll find it in a minute.
So with some of the consortium, we have named the people who contributed to a lesser extent as a group. They were assigned group authorship, and they were in the middle of the sandwich. Would that be an option?
I think
yeah.
I mean, I think there's, well, I don't know about Valerie, but my sort of rule of thumb for the previous challenges volume was a sort of expectation that someone named as an author had contributed at least, let's say, the equivalent of one challenge. I mean, that's
well, that was pretty much how we did it, wasn't it?
I suppose in a way, I mean, I think Valerie and I, certainly myself, are trying to, we'll be embarrassed if we end up as authors of too many things, because we're supposed to be editors, and we don't, if we're authors, we won't be able to edit them. So I mean, I don't think I'm an author here at all. I hope I've made a few helpful comments, but I haven't written anything significant.
Absolutely ditto. I think for both of us, there are a few papers where we have done a bit of writing.
But I wouldn't mind being thanked.
But I certainly wouldn't regard myself as an author of this one. I think if I've done anything at all, I hope it might be a little bit of enabling by sort of goading people into action, but not much else.
Well, one or both of you, I think, or somebody whose arm you can twist, will have to do the actual sort of putting it all together, which is a non-trivial task. And
well, I think we're going to. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to end up as co-authors of at least one or two papers. I mean, I think I'm a co-author of modelling and probably the policy one, but
yeah, well, ditto.
But I mean, the reason I'm bringing this up is that if I now send this out for comments to people, and they're going to make some reasonably substantive comments, which might end up there, can I promise them that their name will be there or not?
Well, I think it would be acknowledged in some way. I think we haven't quite worked out what that way.
I think they get thanked, and I think the question is whether we thank these people at the level of individual papers, which I think would be preferable myself.
Yes, I think so.
And
Yes, that's reasonable. That's reasonable.
I think it should. I think their names should go prominently in being thanked in the particular paper which they've given helpful comments on. So I think each challenge paper, almost certainly, and we'll have to have a think as to whether right at the beginning or right at the end. Probably right at the end is the thing, isn't it? Because at the end, we probably have to have acknowledgements of people who were supported by grants or that kind of thing. So if we have that, my own feeling would be for each paper having a little separate little paragraph there, just saying we thank the following for helpful comments. And
yeah, we acknowledge the gaffer and the best boy and all the others.
Yes, it's a sort of credits rolling at the end of the film.
I finally found the science paper. And what we did there was that we had a list of names. It's on the lines that I was citing. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
My memory is the number of actual authors is still quite large, just over 20.
We've got, I think, 16 named authors. And then the last one is in this case, the Isaac Newton Institute IDD collaboration, because IDD was the Newton program in the same way that we're IDP this time. And then at some point, I'm trying to see where. Okay, in the references, there are the names of the IDD collaboration. So in addition to the authors already mentioned, this collaboration includes, and there's a list of these people with their affiliations. And then there are also acknowledgements, which sort of, can acknowledge other things and say a bit more about who did what. So it says there, this IDD collaboration jointly produced and discussed ideas for the outline and content, et cetera, and a bit about how the paper was put together. So, there's scope for doing things like that if we feel that we want to acknowledge people in a way that's a bit more than just saying thank you in the acknowledgements at the end. But
okay, there are appropriate ways of recognizing contribution. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Both large and small.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose the only difference would be, it was a real program rather than a virtual one.
I was going to say, I think that list essentially rounds up everyone who was part of the workshop, the extended workshop, and
exactly.
And that was, which is about 30 or 30 something people. Whereas here, the equivalent thing would be a list of about 200 people and probably still growing.
So
some of whom have really just signed up and done nothing much more, or maybe maybe contributed to one of those other things, the exit strategies or the R0, but then gone away and got on with life. So
no, I don't.
I think in the challenge, in the challenges, we've at the moment got an email list of 85. So by the time we've sent out to a few more people, the total number of people who are either authors or thanked could well, for the whole volume, be about 100, which is why one reason I think it's more appropriate to thank people under the paper where they're thanked. So typically one of these papers may have between 5 and 10 authors and perhaps another 10 or so people who are thanked. Rather overwhelming numbers. But
anyway, does that give enough flexibility for the moment? I think this is something which I was hoping that as papers got to a state of nearly being complete, it would be fairly obvious who the authors were and who would be thanked. I mean, there's some very obvious people as authors in most of the papers, and then there are some others where it's not quite so clear.
Okay. Have we run out of steam?
I think we have.
I think
Okay.
we all, I think there's quite a few things that individual groups need to do, but yeah, there maybe it isn't so much discussed together.
I mean, I think on this paper, from the editorial point of view, it will be very helpful to get it into something that can be called a full first draft.
Yeah.
Even if it's got some bits that are bullet points or whatever like that. I suppose the main criterion for really calling it a first draft is that we're reasonably happy that things that are in there, do belong in there, that, and that we've more or less covered everything. Obviously, we reserve the right if on getting helpful comments, we essentially decide that there's a whole new section we ought to add, whether or not that brings in a new co-author. We obviously reserve the right to do major revision, but from the point of view of asking someone to look at it, it's nice to have something which looks as though it's complete in some sense. But as I say, it can be complete in a draft way, and that it might still have a few bits that are bullet points that should perhaps later on be turned into proper text. And of course, it almost certainly won't have anything like all the references it ought to end up with.
It would be nice, I think, to have the structure sorted, though.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of
reasonably settled. Exactly.
In terms of presentation of how the challenges are going to appear. Whether they are going to be in terms of sections or subsections or highlighted bits in the text or whatever.
I think there are two things, aren't there, Valerie? I mean, one is that the sort of flow through the paper of the dealing with topics successfully should be reasonably settled. And the other is this point, which is where we're not asking the same orthodoxy we had last time round, where everyone strictly had the paper with n challenges numbered 1 to n, and those were the sections, because we've recognized, I think, that the kind of topics we're dealing with at this time may in some cases make that appropriate. So if people want to have a paper that consists of sections corresponding to the n challenges they're presenting, that's fine. But we think that for quite a few papers, it's more likely to be appropriate that you have a smaller number of sections, and then within them so the sections are more like topics rather than challenges. But then, so a typical section might have 1 or 2 or 3 challenges, and we thought that perhaps there might be consistency in making sure that as far as possible, challenges were stated as a challenge and perhaps appeared in bold type or something like that. So
I think if you look at the paper, you want to be able to skim through and see what the challenges are. In some way, and I'm not sure with all. I'm not meaning this paper in particular, but I think in general we've got various styles, and I'm not sure with all the papers you can really do that at the moment. But I think somehow we've got to make the actual challenges stand out in each paper, and it may be different ways in the different papers, but just so that you can feel, if somebody has said, these are the challenges for estimation, you can say, oh yes, well it's this, and this, and have a fairly clear idea what they are.
And I think depending on the context, it may sometimes be the challenges are quite sharply focused. They're one thing, and you might otherwise, sometimes you might wish to cheat and sort of have a number of, essentially a number of challenges which you find, as it were, a newspaper headline for, and you call that the challenge, but you then go on to explain underneath that there are 3 different things you want to mention or something like
No,
that.
I think that's fine, but you want the newspaper headlines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, that's great. So in terms of doing this, we haven't got everybody. Should I don't know, do we need something in the Dropbox? Sorry, I don't mean the Dropbox, I'm in the Slack channel, or an email. If we're aiming to get sections in a state that we can put them together for next week, should I put a little note in the Slack channel to that effect? And hopefully, I mean, you're presumably in touch with TJ anyway, Ben and Glenn. So we've got Phil and Luke here. So it's really a question of picking up.
Next week.
Sorry?
I said probably not here next week.
Okay, but it's probably a question of picking up mainly Peter and Jasmina, I suppose. I mean, the alternative is just to email them. I don't know what you think.
I'm in touch with Peter about other things, so I'm happy to.
Maybe I'll put, maybe do that, but maybe I put something in the Slack channel as well. And I mean, Daniel's going to be in touch, hopefully, with Jasmina. So we'll be picking those up anyway. But maybe if I just put something brief in the Slack channel, then we've, anybody else who's been involved can see that and know where we've got to with it.
It might be useful to tag the people who couldn't attend today in that message on Slack, so they.
Okay. So who are you thinking of? Particularly the ones we've been talking about, Jasmina and Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
Is there anybody else?
I guess TJ will be up to date.
And TJ, I suppose.
Maybe Danny and Paul.
Sorry?
Maybe
Danny and Paul, yeah. Yeah. And Joshua, I suppose.
Yes.
So it's Danny, Paul and Joshua, TJ, Peter, Jasmina. Anyone else? Anybody that ought to be tagged? I'm not very good at tagging people, so it's good to be prompted to do it. I just think if you put the thing there, they'll see it, but you're quite right. That's okay. All right.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Thank you all very much.
Hello.
Hope to see you next week or whenever.
Yeah.
Thanks then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.